Johnny Mac, welcome to the show.
How you doing, man? It's great to be here.
It's our pleasure. I'm grateful that you're here, and we have a little bit of a different setup today, which I'm excited about. We've never done anything like this before in our studio, so just welcome in. Kick us off and tell us who you are, how you identify, and what you do at Cumberland Heights.
A lot's going on, and first of all, we were talking about how we appreciate being able to do this, and how Ryan over here, where nobody sees,
that's right,
is so instrumental in making this look and really sound good. I'm going to probably take this off because I'll knock it around. And I appreciate you doing these podcasts because it's a really popular medium anymore to get information out to people, and of course we should be doing this. So I'm hoping today we get a little information out about what we do with music here at Cumberland Heights, what I do, kind of who I am, and we hope people watch. And we're going to try to play some songs today, a couple of numbers. That's why the piano's up. This is new for me too, having the keyboard on a table like this, but it seems to work out. I'm called the music therapist here at Cumberland Heights. I'm a recording artist, so I'm still on a little label here in Nashville and hope to sign with a different one in LA pretty soon with this new record that we're doing out there. And then because of my journey with substance abuse and mental health, and I've been a consumer advocate of all these issues for a long time, and I think we'll probably talk a little bit about that today. But I'm from Minnesota, and I started my new life. I have an old life and this new life. I started that up in Minnesota, and a lot of it because of Hazelden and those old roots. And I remember, it's a long time ago, between 35 and 40 years ago, going up there to Hazelden to sing a song. My first time I sang a song I wrote, in front of all those people at Hazelden. And it was a big auditorium like we've got. And I stood up. I told the person I needed a keyboard, person that was running this thing. So they got a real high keyboard stand with a little synthesizer with only like a Bee Gees kind of thing. Uh-huh. Well, that was my first resentment right there. Really uncomfortable. And I'm standing up, and I remember playing, and then I had sort of a panic attack. And I literally had to sit down, and I remember staring, and some of the people in the audience, I knew some people there, and they just went, come on, and I stood back up. So I've never stopped since that day, kind of writing songs, playing music for these audiences, and I found a purpose in all that, Nick, and I played in bars. I've done everything you have to do to get your 10,000 hours in, playing music. But that was a real turning point for me.
Was that your first ever performance?
No, no.
Okay,
it was the first time I played in front of an all-sober audience, because I've been playing some pretty rough places.
Right.
And then I started my new life and continued playing in those places for 3 or 4 years. And then I went, after the closing time and the brawls and the smells of all that world and that life, I just said I wanted to write songs, and I would play my songs in those environments. But when I'm done doing that, they scream out, play old time rock and roll and that. So, I have nothing against all that. Yeah. But I wanted something a little different where people were listening. And then I started to record my own music, and that's what started.
Sounds like that experience might have been a part of that hinge into this field.
Yeah, it absolutely was.
At that time, was there music therapists?
There were people out playing. And in Minnesota, there were a few of us that were doing that. But most people, I kind of fell through the cracks because I didn't get signed to my first record deal until I was 42 years old, which was about 14 some years after I started this new journey. And that's what brought me down south. But it was a new sort of a vehicle for people. And the messaging was, I think there were a bunch of us, trying to see how does this really work? What's the best way to do it? And, we'll talk about music in the brain when we get to this part, but music is such a beautiful medicine for people. I mean, how can you go wrong with a sober audience?
No doubt.
In a treatment center, just wanting to jump around or do something, and you come and play some music for them. So, we kind of learned what was good, what was helpful. I think some of us in the early days were more aware of what kind of message we were sharing. Like, were we truly on this path, or was it just something we kind of thought about? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was a little fork in the road there,
Yeah.
But hinge is a good word.
Yeah.
Because it did, really.
Yeah. How'd you start here? What's that story?
Well, Cumberland Heights, I got my first record deal with Muscle Shoals Studios, which is in Florence, Alabama. At that time, I think it was about 17 years into this new life, and I'd been divorced again, and I lived in a little garage about as big as this room right here. And I got signed by Malico Publishing, which is the publishing arm of Muscle Shoals Studios. Man, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. Little did I know that it wasn't the biggest deal in the world. But the big deal was coming to Muscle Shoals to do a record. And so I came down south, started that record, and I met my wife, Nancy, who's from Florence, Alabama, while I was down there. And we have been together ever since.
Incredible.
We lived long distance for a while, which was tough. And I thought, how we think, we talk on spiritual terms about our journey, our recovery, and we just think, I'm down here because of this music, and that's the big deal. But the sappy part is, I think, what God's plan was for me to get with Nancy. And all the rest has come true, too, But that brought me down here. And that first trip I made down, I had a brother dying of cancer. I had another special needs brother that was in the hospital. I had just been divorced. And I'm in this little car. Everything I own's in that car. And I went to a place downtown Nashville to get to be with some people like myself. And they said, you ought to go out to Cumberland Heights and talk to Dr. Ishii. I said, because he loves musicians. I go, okay. I came out here, Nick, and I went over to Dr. Ishii's office. I made a call. He said, come out. He said, you play a couple songs and tell a little bit about your journey? And I go, yeah. He goes, well, we have a group in 5 minutes. Would you be willing to go sing?
Really?
And it was in his old office over there. And we opened that little door into the small chapel, and it's jam-packed with people. And here I am again about to have another panic attack.
Yeah.
And you just, like most people, get thrown into the fire. That's where I got started. And we ended up doing groups together. He ended up having me do whole days for him here at Cumberland Heights. And I think it's well over 20 years somewhere.
It's an incredible story.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It just makes sense that you drove down River Road, made the phone call, and God had a plan.
Yeah.
And I want to say, but shout out to Miss Nancy too.
Yeah.
Because that is absolutely the reason. No offense to your record, but that was absolutely the
and her family
blessing.
Her family. And I'm going to do a new song today, and I'm just be honest with you. I hope I can get through it because I don't know it very well. But it's very much about what we're talking about with family. Alcoholism, addiction, tore my family to shreds, and I had a front row seat to it.
Did you have a lot of folks in your family experience active addiction?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Dad was alcoholic, violent. Mom was... They're both passed away. And we just thought... I grew up with an Irish Catholic family with 6 boys, 5 boys, 2 girls, and just getting drunk, wrecking cars, do crazy stuff. Seemed to be part of growing up. And so that was the impression I had until, of course, I hit the point where I wasn't growing up anymore. But I had a front row seat to it. I knew what it looked like, what it smelled like, what it was like to have a father that's not engaged with you, but the obsession, all that stuff. Yeah. I grew up around all that.
Yeah. So is that what the song's about?
Well, it's about, I think one of the things, coming back to Cumberland Heights, that, and Cumberland Heights was started by some people that came from those Hazelden roots.
That's right.
And it's a very deep, very basic roots of what recovery is, and their mission statement early on and what it was about. And that was evident to me here also. But, the family program here at Cumberland Heights, it's one of my favorite things. I got involved with it more a few years ago than I am now. But it dawned on me how our families are torn apart, how we all need someone to believe in us, to tell you, hey, you're doing a good job. Because I'm kind of a dreamer. So I need those voices and behind me telling me I'm going to be okay. Hope.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hope.
Honesty and hope. How about that for some?
I mean, any family program, we've had Deborah J on the show before. And of course she's pioneer and a huge advocate for family services and how important they are for organizations like ours to have them accessible and truly integrated, not as best we can, so we're a voluntary program, not as requirements, but strong suggestions. And, the work that they do, in those multifamily groups and those moments where they're able to see another dyad unpack something live, that community-based experience is one of the most, maybe the word is potent, medicines you can take. And the, blindfolding in the maze and learning how to ask for help. I mean, folks know, I came through this program as an alumni, and my parents came through the family program, and they still talk about the maze.
Oh, nice.
And being unable to ask for help.
Yeah.
And how impactful that, because the work continues, but man, you're right. The families come driving on campus 2 weeks after their loved ones here or in whatever program, and they're beat down and hurt and sad and angry and scared and looking for some hope. And there's some skilled clinicians here that work with those families.
And the principles in the steps that people talk about, the first one is honesty, and then the second one is hope. And hope comes with this power. And when the families come, and I'll tie this into the music, because when the families come, to provide them with some knowledge and some stuff about what's going on, because most people in the dark and in the blindness go, why does my son keep doing this stuff? I can't understand. We give them a little glimpse of what's happening up here with the brain, and then they start to learn, and then they start to see this is how I can separate myself, because I'm powerless over the addict, the alcoholic. This is how I can take care of myself. It's a pretty big healing thing that goes on. And then when both people, family and patient, have the tools, it's like miracle grow for the spirit. And people have this thing. With the music program here, when they asked me to run that for the music professionals, I'll just talk about that quick.
Please, please do. Yeah.
I said, what if we have a tour support family day? And of course here everybody goes, yeah, that's a great idea. Because I said when musicians are out on the road, and when I say musicians, we wanted to make it clear from the get-go that that's the lead singer, that's the guitar player, that's the truck driver, that's the guy or girl selling T-shirts. That's a life out there. That's their family when they're out on the road. Why don't we bring them in for a day and do the same thing with them in a condensed form? This is what the disease is. Of course, you get some raised eyebrows when you bring the, I go, ooh, I thought he could just have one. I didn't know.
Right.
And we, without the patient, educate them, and then you bring in the musician. And we had, of course, we can't mention names, a very big rock band, and they've got platinum records. And the guitar player was an alum of here, had come through the program, so he's got 2 years in his new life. And he said, I got something really important I want to tell the guy. The guy's the singer, founder, the guy. I said, sure, we'll do it this afternoon, no problem. And we came, and the manager's there, and there's 5 or 6 guys from Nashville, the tour guys, agents, the whole band. It's a kind of a tense thing, and I'm sitting next to the guy. And I said, go ahead. He has a couple things he wants to tell you, and I'll watch my language. There's some pretty raw language. But he said, when you're drinking, you are terrible, and you act like an ass, and you make us look bad. And he went into some details. He said, do you want to listen to the mixes of you singing when you're? And what really grabbed me was the core of this. He said, the guitar player, I'm raising my 2 little girls. This is my job. And you're messing it up. And I've been afraid to talk to you because I thought you would fire me. So what happened was this sacred place was created, which we do here for families, which we did in this case, for them to talk about this. And of course, the guy took it really well. And the rest of the day, we figured out, how do we stay sober? How do we do this together? The other guy said, I don't need to drink. A lot of musicians are stuck with this thought. Musicians, plumbers, cops, all of us. I can't do anything without drinking. Isn't that what we're here for?
I think it's a really cool story. And of course, I'm not going to name any names, but if you work here long enough, you hear stories about this person. And that's probably anywhere in the industry. But what is one thing that's unique is just, our proximity and relationship with Nashville.
Oh.
And having been an organization that's been here since 1966, just there's probably a little bit of that knowledge that's been lost, in terms of how, whether that's certain families or individuals, but what an honor and a privilege for that. And it's something we don't do a good job talking about, externally. Maybe we don't need to, but that part of our organizational character or unique identity that, and you, me and Ryan have had lunch and talking about this, and that whether it's the annual concert, the John Hyatt concert, or music program, the proximity to Nashville, all those relationships, all those before us and will come after us that support that work is really unique. I do have a question for you about the music program here. So can you tell people I guess how do musicians get supported when they come in and they self-identify as a musician, or we get a referral, and let's talk about the folks that aren't platinum record famous,
and
how do they
most of them aren't. And when a lot of them reach out for help, the organization Music Cares gets involved, or they're contacted. And it's just a beautiful organization, and they raise money to help musicians that they don't have insurance, floods, all the things that happen in life.
Had a long-term relationship with Music Cares, absolutely.
And of course, treatment. So we'll get a lot of those patients that come through Music Cares, and then a lot of them hear that we have a music program here, and so they'll come for that. They get support in a lot of different ways, and we have, because it's Nashville, there's a lot of musicians that are in recovery. We have a group every Tuesday that we do here for those music professionals patients that track. The guys from around town, the engineers, the artists, some of them are, really famous, come in and talk about their recovery, their sobriety.
Super cool.
And how they do that. And then they get numbers, and then they get support out in the... We always talk about a 3-legged stool, which is fellowship and another human being who you tell the whole truth to. They call that a sponsor. And then, higher power, that 3-legged stool. So we provide them with some resources to get connected there. While they're here, Nick, I tell you, there's something really sacred about a musician who's broken, sitting in a room, our music room over here, with a guitar, and he plays a little music, and then we play a little, And then he just starts talking. He or she starts talking. And a lot of times before we leave, they've written a song about their true story, stories and songs. It's really a way music affects people, whether they're playing it or listening to it, And then, we had, I'll do this quick and then we'll do a little song about this, but I don't know, I guess Dr. Ishii and I got started this thing called Spiritual Emphasis Day, and then I ended up kind of
I didn't know that. Okay.
taking it over because he had so many other duties, and I could come, and I thought, boy, they must really love me here. Now that I'm a licensed counselor, I realize that they've got a day where they can all do some of their notes and everything, so they just left me with them. Yeah. But we did a talent show one day, and I'm here now, and I've been doing it a lot. You can build it through the month, and so you have people that just played, and you got famous people. This is exactly how this one went, and I'll try to be quick, but it's great. So we're going to have a talent show next week, and we're going to do this and that. I want you all to sign up, And so the first guy that signs up is a big, tall dude from East Tennessee who wore a bib overalls. He said, I want to do some stand-up comedy. I go, okay, and I'm thinking, you got to keep it clean. This is the only time we let the men and women in the same space.
Okay.
Yep. All together, sitting apart.
Yeah.
I said, all right, String Bean, you got to be cool. And then we had a kid who I'd worked for about 3 weeks with who knew 2 chords on the guitar. I taught him the third one. He said, I want to write a song for my son because I'm really sorry some of the things I didn't do for him because of my drinking. We took 3 weeks writing that. Then we had a guy who is so big and famous, you can't believe it. He said, okay, I'll play. And then the last one to sign up was the oldest woman here. Almost said her name, I won't. She said, I want to do an interpretive dance. Now, I have to admit, I'm thinking, I don't know.
Where is this going to go?
Where's this going to go, and how is this going? And she said, "I want you to play some meditative music, like Yanni." And I'm going, "Okay, is this okay?" And I remember watching her hand, and she had this just beautiful motion. She said, "That'll do." So the talent show came. Everybody's in there. String Bean got up, and 5 of the funniest jokes I've ever heard, all clean. Everybody's going nuts. It's just the energy's great. And then the young kid came up. And I always sit with the patients because you want it to be a successful experience, and they don't. And he's shaking because and he's going, I can't do this. And I go, yes, you can. Here we go. And he started to play. And, like when a little kid learns to ice skate, and it's really wobbly, and everybody's they don't really know his story yet, And then they start to realize, he's not some big hot shot, We told him he wrote this song for his son. Second verse, it's getting better. Now he's got him hooked in, and he's getting a little confidence, And when he finished, he got a standing ovation. Tears are coming down, and he hugs me, Then comes Big Shot, and I swear to God, his hands are shaking. He says, I can't do this. And we back away from the mic, and he goes, I play for thousands of people. I ain't playing for like 150. This is too intense.
Intimate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I said, yes, you can. Here we go. So he starts, and it was just awesome. And he was really humbled because he followed that kid. There was something about that, and he helped that kid so much. When they got done, he was telling them stuff, how good he was. I couldn't tell that to that kid.
They helped each other. Yeah,
and with the impact that this big star.
Right.
Anyway, then Deborah came. She's at the side of the FLC. She's getting ready to run. I'm going, oh, no, here we go. And I play this little Yanni stuff. She starts running, and she's 70 years old, 72, I think. Not that.
Sure.
It's bad,
Yeah.
But she runs. She flies up in the air. Everybody's watching her. She does a spin. She lands on her toes and starts to do this unbelievable dance, ballet dance. And we got people from East Tennessee and all around the country. And a lot of people never saw a ballet dancer, especially one just dancing to me playing the piano really bad.
In a treatment center.
In a treatment center. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And she does the bow. Yeah. The place goes nuts. The energy, the dopamine's dripping all over the place. And she comes up to me shaking. And I went, where did you learn to do that? And she said, I taught ballet at the New York City Ballet for 25 years. So nobody knew their stories. But after that little thing that day, they knew their stories. And I like to think that everybody started to tell their own stories a little bit more, you know. And honesty and hope. And if I can throw this tune in here, this might be a place. And this, it's a brand new tune. But I think about people that lose, you know, the addict, the alcoholic that's in here doing their family program, even when the parents are doing every possible thing they can to help them and they don't know how and stuff. When you're in the middle of that blindness, you don't hear anything.
No, you don't.
Know, and so this is just a little hopeful song, and it's called "Tell Yourself I Can," and it's about those negative voices, you know, that we have. Every dreamer needs a voice, sometimes to cheer him on. A voice, but not the one that says you're a fool. Every dreamer looks for love, just to pull them through. The kind of love that believes in you. If you turn around suddenly they're gone, doubt comes knocking on your door. If you feel like giving up and you can't carry on, just tell yourself I can. Everybody I've ever known needs someone to lift them up, not knock them down. A lover, a friend, or a confidant. The family always standing round. If you wake up one day and suddenly they're gone, doubt comes knocking on your door. If you feel like giving up, oh, when you can't carry on, just tell yourself I can. If you feel like giving up and you can't carry on, tell yourself I can. If you want to fly like the eagles, but no one understands, and tell you it's too late to try, and you're still a prisoner of your own disbelief, tell yourself I can. And if you feel like giving up and you can't carry on, tell yourself I can. Just tell yourself I can.
So I don't think I've ever experienced having somebody sing me a song. Like,
yeah, it's just you and me and Ryan.
That's a first time experience, and so something happened within me that I wasn't expecting.
Oh wow!
You know, so that's interesting.
You know, in that the hope part, there's power. If we simplify some, you know, there's so many ways to look at this stuff, and everybody's way is good. The first part is the honesty of, you know what, this is who I am. I have this disease. And the second part is, you come to believe in something greater than yourself, and that's where the hope comes in. And a lot of us, you know, my story, I remember banging on the table, 1983, screaming, "God help me, I'm going to take my own life." You know, there's details to all that. And the help came, but it took me quite a while. But when I first got around people that were had this new life, and it was fathers and mothers, like being fathers and mothers and being responsible, and that whole family thing and that whole support, a lot of that's in this song, because I turned around one day and there's nobody there, you know, and obviously I can't do it myself. But in this life of recovery, and especially be able to work in this field, I turn around now and I can't count the thousands of people that are there. And I think that's what we need, is that voice. And the voice is usually, you know, you can do this, and we're going to help you, you know.
It's certainly the first spiritual principle I experienced in recovery, which just so happened to be in the same room that the talent show took place.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, and there's a whole story about that, and it's not about me today, but when I think about you singing that song, and when I think about you talking about the how of recovery, and when I think about whatever impromptu concert might happen with the patient who just wrote a song, and the multi-platinum recording artist, and the professional ballet dancer, you know, as an example, that's the spirit of recovery that maybe I love the most, which is all are welcome, and that vulnerability, that deep authenticity that comes out with no masks as best we can, and garbage of the outside world, and we're just John M., Nick H., and we can share an emotional moment, or we can share with each other as clients or patients. Like, that is the stuff that I think really starts to change people's lives. Yeah. Those individual moments of hope that you're talking about that drive them to pick up the phone call when they leave or whatever. Like, I'm like, I think people that have experienced it know what I'm talking about. Like that moment where you feel this deep sense of connection that you have not felt in a long time, or maybe ever.
Yep.
And sometimes it happens here in treatment.
And the power of this looking into another human being's eyes and telling the truth and all that, but also the music.
It does something else.
My stepdaughter, Betsy, is an expert.
Shout out to Betsy.
On the brain. Yeah, big time shout out. She's neuroscience. And she said, "Step Diddy, I got to show you these experiments they did with people that had a prayer and meditation practice." And I believe 5 to 7 minutes a day or something, some sort of meditation practice. And it didn't matter who you prayed to or what you prayed to, how you did it. And they compared the brains to people that did not have that. And the evidence is really cool to me. Not that I need evidence, but it's really, when we do these workshops and stuff around the country, of course, I bring this stuff up, but the brain on music is lit up like a Christmas tree, and dopamine is produced, and blood flow is increased. All these parts of the brain are lit up. It's not left or right brain anymore. It's like the whole brain is. And the people not praying and meditating, that limbic system, you know, the fight or flight thing down here at the very bottom, is kind of thumping away, waiting to jump to action, you know. So in these moments, present moments, where a lot of people feel spiritual stuff with music, it's like a no-brainer, because you're not thinking about that. Yeah. We're all in this present moment. Of course, we get them to shake tambourines and jump around and get goofy.
Which
it's
is
just
also,
as effective.
You're right.
It's just so effective.
Because you're not sitting reserved, here we go, next group therapy, you know, whatever it might be. You know, it's I've got to get out of my comfort zone. I mean, there are all these micro experiences that are teaching you to
know, you're not at a concert, you are the concert. You know, you be the you get to do that stuff. So, and how it activates the brain. And then they've done the MRI imaging of the brain on music, and it's just absolutely amazing. And
I was talking to somebody about Alzheimer's and what we're discovering there, and Live Inside. And let me ask you this: what what experiences could you share with the patient that doesn't want to participate, over the years, like that is crossing their arms and doesn't want to move and shake the tambourine? Like, have you seen some interesting...
Well, I'm pretty persistent, but I have. So here's an example, and the best way to do it is just tell you what happened.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman here. I'll give you some vague details, how they do with, we'll say his name is Dave. It's a good name, Dave. And Dave was a veteran in his 50s, his first time in treatment. Doesn't like living with some other guys that snore and some young guys that don't, you get kind of old. You think young people are pretty unintelligent.
I know. Tell me about it.
But he's impatient. He's irritable. I ain't having any of this. And we did an exercise in the music room, and it was the first time I did this particular little thing. And it's none of this is new, but
so it's him and you, or a group?
No, it's him and 7 other men. It's a small men's music group. None of them are professionals. So we're doing. I said, here's a little piece of paper, and on here, write down a couple of songs that you remember. Because we know about the power of song. We know now that Alzheimer's affects every part of the brain except that part that can remember a particular song or time. And I'll tell you a story about that. But so this guy, I hand out the paper, write down a couple songs that you remember something about, why you remember it, what kind of feelings it gave. And all this is just people draw their own stories. They tell you just to and I'll be dadgum if that guy didn't grab a pencil before he even got him handed out the whole way. He is writing away. So I've got a cell phone, and I go, what's the song, Dave? He goes, it's this and that. It's by so-and-so. And I play it, and it's the most beautiful little lullaby you could ever imagine. And I put it on, and it gets real quiet. I look over at Dave, and here it comes, Niagara Falls. It's the most beautiful thing. It totally disarmed him. What a great word. Disarmament, where we fight the scariness of feeling these feelings. And I said, Dave, why did you pick that song? And he's sniffling, and all the guys are really getting into it because
sure
Dave
they're like,
finally,
yeah, right.
He said, because every morning when I was a little boy, my mother sat me on her lap and played me this little song on our piano which was right by the kitchen. He said, until all hell broke loose. Now, all hell broke loose is that thing which stuff happens to us. And a lot of people get the treatment before they talk about that. And he talked about it. The next thing we did is we handed out the tambourines. Dave went absolutely nuts. He could have broke his back. I don't know. But these all middle-aged guys and the young guys don't care as much, And they're flying around the room and tears are coming. And I really believe the serious sandwich approach to healing is we can deal with really serious stuff, and if we have a little fun on each end of it, it's a really beautiful thing. And I watched Dave walk out of there, and I like to think his experience, he probably did more of that with the other groups he was in too,
Right.
So there was, it just, Nick, I think you agree with this. Everything is there. We just have to sort of get stuff out of the way.
Absolutely.
And then find it,
Yeah, we have, and it's there's no such thing as first of all, I like the serious sandwich. I just want to shout that out. I like the way you described that. But there's no such thing as an unwilling patient or an unwilling person or blockage or unknown, anything. It's what combinations of approaches, interventions, models, songs, experiences can we help somebody have while they're under our care that will help them feel.
There's a great propensity in this field, we're all learning as we go, but to judge so that we can regulate and then we can moderate and we can get them to do this. And, and it's the same way when I think growing up is overrated. Dave was a 50-some-year-old guy, but really Dave was 8 years old. And with children, we're learning not so much to punish them, to get them, but we need to ask people, what happened to you That's why this other stuff is happening. We have patients where you think, well, they're not engaged or they're being really... Well, the reason is they're covering up. This is too scary. You know, when people are in recovery together, we've been to these scary places, so we put on the coal miners' hats and we go to somebody that's not been down there. Come on, it'll be okay. It smells really bad.
That's right.
But we're going to be okay.
It's a perfect analogy. And then you might have those coal miners that are saying, hey, this is what it was like down there last time we were down there. And I had this experience and there was that experience. And the person that just showed up to the job site's thinking, well, maybe I can do this too.
Yeah. Hope.
Maybe I will. Yeah.
Hope. The whole hope thing.
Yeah.
So Dave was a great example of that. And, you know, a long time ago, I was playing a jazz down in Florence, Alabama. I went to an old folks home or a senior center, but they were all old. And they wheel them in. And I've done this a million times. I'm not offended that there's a lot of drooling and a lot of not of attention. But there's a beat up old piano, and I'm playing all this jazz stuff. And but at the very last minute, they wheeled in one woman in a wheelchair at the very last minute, and they said, "This is Ruth, and she's been catatonic for 2.5 years. So just don't worry about it." And Ruth was catatonic.
Right.
Out. Big heavy blanket over her. So we start playing about the third song, and I got a saxophone player with me, and we're just tearing it up. And it was All of Me, an old song, but we're doing it kind of bluesy. And I see, like in a slow motion in a documentary, the nurse in the back going, "Oh no." and then another nurse runs to her and goes, I could read her lips, "Leave her alone." And I look over, and Ruth had gotten up. And she was in the middle of the dance floor. She looked like she was 25 years old. And she was dancing, and she had stuff to shake every which direction. I mean, she was just, and everybody, her tears are going down, and her eyes were all lit up. The Alzheimer's we're finding, and more research, I'm not an expert at it, but what I do know is Alzheimer's does not affect that one part of the brain that remembers a memory and with music associated with it. So I imagine she was remembering being in New Orleans with a lover or a friend, just dancing. And I'm thinking, I should just keep playing because I don't want to ruin this for Ruth. It was the longest version of all of Me ever played.
It's a great point. And
then when we stopped, she did this, and they had to hold her and they walked her back. Yeah.
I think you're right. There is, and if anybody's interested in particular that topic, there's a great documentary that I tell everybody about that I saw years and years ago. It's called Alive Inside.
Oh wow!
And it's really in particular to, finding those songs that spoke to certain people at a certain times in their life and replaying them, and the families having like pretty jarring experiences in terms of being able to have a conversation again. Now limited, depending on the case, but that's really interesting. But the reason why for this conversation is music has that imprint on us emotionally in that midbrain like you were talking about. And Dave, that's why Dave chose that song. I mean, lucky us, he did choose it because he could have chosen something else. And the moment that you played it,
he did, yeah.
It took him back.
And he associated that with his mother's loving arms. Everything is safe.
Right.
And when he said before all hell broke loose, that's the part we deal with that he finally was able to talk about. But that comfort he felt, and that's really powerful memory. And melody and rhythm and all that tempo is the first way we communicated as humans.
What I want people to hear from you too is just a statement of like, sometimes change isn't about what we think.
Oh, sure.
Like
let me
play a song.
That's a good one. So here's a story, and I'm better just telling true stories than trying to make something up. But there's a fella I met through my wife, and this is a Alabama kind of thing. His name was Isaac. He's from Demopolis, Alabama, and he was the friend of a very good friend of my wife's. That friend called my wife one day when I just come home from being a tour date, and it was fun, and I have a few of those a year, but Nancy didn't much care. She was on the phone, and this friend was asking to get some help for his friend Isaac, who had been in treatment 24 times, 11 mental institutions, which are kind of the same thing, 7 DUIs, so he'll never go near a car again. He said, I think my friend is in a motel drinking, and I think he's dead. Would your husband go get him? And I'm thinking, I'm a diabetic, type 1, and I'm dreaming about sugar-free ice cream. That's my primary motive, getting off the airplane. And I don't want to go, but okay, and I got a friend who happened to work here. We went to get Isaac. He was almost dead, and Cumberland Heights took him. And detoxed, got him back on his feet, sent him on his way. This song happened 2 years later. I'm sort of a consultant with Isaac. He calls me one day, says, I want to go to Knoxville. I got a brand new friend. His name is Jimmy. And he's going to go get his old car in Knoxville. Can I go? And I said, sure. And when you're on this path, there's certain disciplines you do. And we've go through the checklist, and Isaac is so excited you think he's going to Rome or something, And both of these guys had 2 kids, and wives and kids want nothing to do with them. They're totally isolated. Their whole family right now is just these 2 guys headed to Knoxville. And when they came back, there's a bunch of us coming out of a thing we were doing together on a June day, and in the parking lot of that place flies a Mercedes-Benz convertible with gold-plated hubcaps. The front is all engraved. It's like and I didn't tell you that his friend Jimmy, his whole family's in the mafia. So this old car, I don't even want to know where the money came from. It comes flying in the parking lot, hits the tires, hits the brakes, and screeching and smoke, and they head straight for us. And my first thought is, we're going to get run over by a Mercedes. These guys are crazy. They're out of mind. And they stopped right in front of us. And they put their hands up in the air. And Isaac said, we drove 95 miles an hour the whole way back. And he had this big smile that came on his face. So how does recovery work? The backstory is when he was 14, he went to get milk with his father in Demopolis, Alabama, and they got hit by a train going full speed. His father basically disappeared, and Isaac lived through it. Isaac's wife said he had not smiled since he was 14 years old. He came to Cumberland Heights. He almost died. He got hooked up with Jimmy. He was 64 years old that day when that big grin finally came on his face. How do we know what's going to work?
Yeah.
How do we really know? This is called God Works That Way. And have you heard this song before? Am I singing it before? Oh yeah, but not for you. Jimmy got his old car back, a Mercedes-Benz, riding with the top down and his brand new friend. His name is Isaac, he's a good old Alabama boy. He's been fighting the old devil who just loves to take his joy. And now they fly through the Tennessee hills, waving their arms in the air. Jimmy was born in Youngstown, where you had to be bad. Isaac in Demopolis, in the backseat of a cab. Jimmy says, I always wanted a friend and a car to call my own. Now the oddest couple in the whole damn world, they're flying down the road. And they fly through the Tennessee hills, waving their arms in the air. 'Cause God works in mysterious ways, sometimes putting us in just the right place. God works that way. You see, they just got back from war with a bottle and a pill. No, they're not weak men, it's no matter of will. While crawling back from emptiness, there came a light and a spark when the angels made them angels to keep each other from the dark. And now they fly through the Tennessee hills, waving their arms in the air, 'cause God works in mysterious ways, sometimes putting us in just the right place. Who you're with, oh, it's never a mistake. Oh, if you believe God works that way. Well, I believe, yes I do, that God works that way.
Great job, my friend. It's a good one.
Thank you, Nashville.
I don't think I've heard that song before. Love that song.
Yeah. Really, those two guys are just, what they did for each other.
Yeah.
Jimmy needed Isaac, and Isaac needed Jimmy.
Yeah. So I just have to ask this. I don't know the story, because I know the other song you have written up here is a classic in terms of our organization and who we are, Up on River Road. And I don't know if I know the genesis story of that song.
Well, it started, now I'm trying to think back, when I started to work full time here. For some reason, I had a lot of individual sessions with guys. And we were all writing songs. I had them write songs. And I don't think any of them had ever written a song together. And so we're writing these things. And Nashville is the capital of just great songwriters. And none of these guys were slick or had anything special going. But the things that eventually came out of them were unbelievable. And I slowly watched one of the guys, there was a woman in one of the groups too. I watched them change over like a 2 or 3 week period, And when they'd all get done doing that, I said, I'm going to write a song about all this that's going on. They go, great, and I'd write a little bit and I'd share it with them, and they go, that's good, that's good. And it happened in about a month period. And one day I'm sitting down there, down in the music room, and I got the little lick, and I go, oh, that's pretty cool, And the first line came, they get here all alone. And
it makes me emotional. Just hearing it makes me emotional.
And I teared up, and I thought, I was scared with all the new responsibilities. I go, what am I doing here? They've given me some stuff to do. How am I going to do music therapy? And they wanted me to get licensed, and I don't have a clue what I'm doing. And I realized at that point that this power will do it for you if you just listen to these people. So it was really inspired by those first 15, 20 patients that came through that music room, when I kind of started working full time. And
what year was that?
It's tough.
It had to have been, because
6 years ago, 7 maybe 8.
I feel like they played that song for us when we were coining out, when I was a patient.
It's very possible. Well, how long ago was that?
A long time.
Was it?
14 years ago.
Wow, it might have been the little demo. Then I went in and did a. Golly, it could be.
And that, because there's a. I think it was John.
Oh wow! See, there you go.
Yeah, but it's interesting. You play the first, few chords, and I I'm taken back to.
We got to do it at the
point.
Ryman last year, and
That was special.
holy cow! What a beautiful thing. So at those moments, you realize, I think, gratitude becomes a part of the ball game. You realize what a wonderful place we're at.
Oh man,
isn't it cool?
so lucky.
And I'm a part of this just wonderful thing that's in motion, and I just have to be. I think I just need to listen to people and ask them what happened to you. I really believe that's sort of the secret. Now, we've had some pretty famous people write some songs here too, and I take my hands off of that because it's sort of ethical thing. But there's been some really cool songs written at this place that people hear, today. A couple, three of them, and so that and I think there was a song Down on River Road or something, but I said, I'm going to write one that's up, because that little chapel is probably a big part of that song, and Dr. Ishii. Because in the song it mentions that there's power in this place. Some say holy ground. We're one of the few treatment centers, if any, that actually have a little chapel, non-denominational place to... that's a special little place.
Sure
That's the first door I went in when Dr. Ishii said, "Are you okay? You ready to go play a song for the patients?" And I walked through
the back door, right?
The back door.
Yeah, no, because you didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh well, here you go. We're right here.
20 some years later, here we sit. So
which is also just for people to understand, like this is a little chapel right next to the first, it's on our founding property, right next to the farmhouse that was here when the property was purchased in 1965. And the bell tower on top of the chapel is our logo, which is it's our primary likeness. It's the heart of the home in a lot of ways. It's something we don't. I don't remember that always.
I don't either until
being here
just,
every day. Right?
You articulated that really nice.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
That's good.
Yeah.
And then I think when we work, a couple of things that, you got a bunch of patients in front of you, and I say that I want to start today's thing off with, you're the experts. I said, we got a lot of people around here with really just tools to give you and gifts, and talent. We have a lot of talent, great people that work here. But ultimately, you're the one that understands what this is about. And when you're walking through, a lot of the healing happens when they're with each other and they talk to each other and they finally fess up. Honesty, that first part. And normally what happens, in my experience, you tell somebody something you kind of don't share with a lot of people. And around here, we do this.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
And what a grace-filled, forgiving expression, that we do for each other. And I think of that little chapel and how many people have come through there and how many people's lives they've touched and how many people they've looked in the eye and said, me too, and given them some hope. It's a powerful thing to be a part of.
It's what would you rather be doing?
Yeah.
For me. For us.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
And I get to play music. Some days I'm down there and there's a beautiful music room. Anybody that's not been here and you come, I love to show it to people. And it's because people have donated stuff. We have a baby grand piano, and we have a piano in the little chapel, which is sort of proportionate to what it's a beat up little thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just love it.
Love it.
And they sneak in there. See, the secret is you're not supposed to play that in there because it bothers some of the counselors, not all of them, because they're not.
Yeah, for sure.
But everybody goes in there and plays. That's a secret.
Yeah, everybody also rings the bell, which I heard has been recently fixed. So
really,
yeah,
okay.
Because I think
Can I play up on River Road while it's on my?
Please do.
Will they get here all alone? And they come from near journey starts by wiping tears from their eyes and by mending their souls from all that pain to all that grace upon River Road, where hand in hand we're stronger as one. We're all just going home up on River Road, arm in arm. Day by day we go, changing lives up on River Road. We all get lost 'cause we know the dark so well. See the light up on River Road, and there's power in this place. Some say holy ground, waiting for more miracles up on River Road, where hand in hand we're stronger as one. Just going home up on River Road, arm in arm. Day by day we go, changing lives up on River Road. Up on River Road, oh, there's power in this place. And we're waiting for more and more miracles up on River Road.
Best I've ever heard it. Truly. Maybe it's just because it's just me.
I put a little different ending on there that time.
Loved that. A couple things. I hope that we're going to play that again. You are going to play that again this year at the concert.
Well,
I bet
see.
you are.
We'll see what happens.
It's just a good song, and I just want to tell people, like, you're talking about the chapel and the reality of what happens for somebody in a family when they come to treatment here, and what an honor it is to get to work here, to do the little roles that we have as temporary proprietors as part of this place. And I just want to say, I hope our friends might listen to this. Great, we love them. Shout out to our friends. Shout out to Miss Nancy. But I hope there's somebody listening to this that's scared to make the next decision about coming to treatment. And I hope that maybe by hearing from you and some of this music, they make a decision to reach out for help. And that doesn't have to be Cumberland Heights, brother,
Yeah, right.
But gosh, there are places all over this country that are beautiful, full of beautiful people, like you said, that are here to help folks heal, And for you and I that had, as you said it really well, our old life and our new life, I hope it happens sooner than later.
And a lot of my gratitude just comes from, Dr. Ishii, the people that came before us.
One of our great predecessors here,
Yeah, and the people that founded this place that went away to Minnesota and found a new way and thought, well, let's bring this down here. And I think, I'm one of the old guys.
And think about that time.
Oh, absolutely.
The 1960s.
Yeah, they're doing stuff nobody had ever done before.
Yeah, it was a stretch.
And there's so many people to thank, and you're really good at that. But the names that's why we're here today and stuff. They did stuff that people didn't do before, and we're all just trying to figure this thing out. And I like to believe, Nick, that we're still trying to figure stuff out. We don't have the answers to all this stuff, but at the very, very core of it, I'm sort of an old I'm a little bit traditional. I try to be open to new ideas. But ultimately, it's that get around that voice that tells you you're okay, we believe in you, we love you, we forgive you. Grace and mercy, there's no end to it. And you don't have to jump around and do headstands to get that. You just ask for help. And I think the access to help, that's the biggest thing that this community, when they talk about Cumberland Heights, it's just the ripples go out and out. And I want people to know that work at Cumberland Heights that all around the country, we're very well respected. The people that represent us out there, Jay and those, are really well-loved people. And I thank all of them, because without them, I wouldn't be here.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Nick.
And being here. No, it's been our pleasure. I think Ryan's thrilled, and I do want to give a shout out to Ryan, because we said before the episode, all these things were just ideas. Ryan's the one that actually does the work, and so thank you, Ryan. And I just want to say, for anybody that's listening, you can link, and down below you'll see links to like or listen to this episode and the rest of our podcasts. And if you're interested in learning more about John and his work here at Cumberland and beyond, check out our website. I'm sure there's a few blog posts that we'll probably reference down below. And thanks again for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.